Hello, Ben Bierce here with Revelation Cellular Forensics. This video is going to cover cell phone evidence preservation and spoliation, and how wear leveling and garbage collection can affect that. Cell phones can be an excellent source of evidence for our cases. If we have a motor vehicle crash, there's probably a cell phone in each of the vehicles involved. Cell phones have become a significant part of our lives, and we take them everywhere. So how do we preserve this information? Normally, we would just send a preservation letter to the opposition with something like, preserve the cell phone, or preserve the electronically stored information. Is that enough? Well, probably not. Cell phones commonly perform wear leveling and garbage collection, two functions that can destroy evidence on the phone without any input by the user. To avoid spoliation, or argue spoliation after the fact, we need to understand how phones store this information. It's pretty common knowledge that information is stored in the form of ones and zeros on the memory card of a device. But not all memory is created equal. Most cell phones use the type of memory chip called a NAND. NAND refers to the logical formula, not and, which the technology uses to determine if a certain gate reads a 1 or a 0. Going deeper into NAND technology is not the focus of this video, but we can simplify this by thinking of each NAND gate as a light switch. If it's switched on, it'll read a 1. If it's switched off, it'll read a 0. These gates are organized into pages and blocks on the memory chip, and this helps the operating system find the information when it's looking for it. In this image, the blue areas represent the blocks, and the green areas represent the pages. These switches can only handle a certain number of changes. A normal NAND switch can handle between 3,000 and 100,000 read-write cycles before it fails. To optimize the life of the chip and make sure that certain areas don't fail prematurely, NAND manufacturers use a process called wear leveling. Certain blocks and pages on a chip will receive more use than others. An example would be the block that contains the text messages. If a file, like the one containing the text messages, remained in the same area on the chip all the time, it would receive so many reads and writes that it would fail before the rest of the chip, and shorten the life of the memory chip overall. Wear leveling takes files from areas on the chip that receive high levels of usage and move them over to areas on the chip that receive less usage. The idea is that the whole card will receive the same amount of usage and the whole card will fail at the same time. In the image, the green areas represent erased pages, and the other colors represent pages with data. Once the data is moved to the new block, the old data still remains in the same place, but the operating system considers the old block unused. In the image, the old data is represented by gray pages. Unlike other forms of memory, NAND blocks must be erased before new data can be written to them. In the image, all the pages in gray would need to be flipped to 1 and erased before any new data could be written to them. In NAND memory, one page cannot be erased by itself. The whole block must be erased at the same time. If these blocks were being erased at the same time the data was being written to them, the process would take much longer and slow down the user experience. So, NAND chips use a process called garbage collection to identify these blocks with old information and erase them periodically so that when new information is being written to them, they don't have to be erased beforehand. So what does this mean? When we send a preservation letter for a cell phone, usually the recipient will just stop deleting anything on the phone and maintain it. But is that enough? And it's probably not. Any information deleted prior to the preservation letter will probably be eradicated by wear leveling and garbage collection. Additionally, old data may be erased automatically by the phone if it's in continual use. For example, both Android and iPhone offer settings to automatically delete old text messages. This function is intended to help the app load faster. I was curious to see what the default settings were, so I checked my iPhone 10. I hadn't adjusted any of the settings, and it was set to delete old text messages in 1 year. This is an example of one application that will automatically delete old data. Many applications have this feature so that they can clear up memory on the phone. If the user continues to use the target phone, a significant amount of data, potentially evidence, can be lost without any input from the user. So what can we do about this? Well, we can educate the opposition in our preservation letter. We can provide guidance on how to preserve the information and educate the opposition that where leveling and garbage collection can occur. We can also let them know that cell phones tend to delete information automatically under normal use. We can provide them with steps to take to make sure that the information is preserved. Here's what I recommend. First, place the phone in airplane mode. Next, remove power from the phone. Turn the phone off. If the battery is removable, remove it, and don't plug it into a charger. Next, radio isolate the phone. It should already be in airplane mode, but we can also remove the SIM card. And then, for an extra step, place it in a Faraday bag or wrap it in aluminum foil. Instruct the opposition not to turn the phone on until it can be forensically examined. And last, preserve the passcodes or patterns to get into the phone. But not just that, but also the user ID and password for their Google account or their iCloud account. Let's break this down a little bit. Placing the phone in airplane mode will make sure that the phone will not connect with the internet when the examiner turns on the phone for the examination. The examiner should remove the SIM card, and the phone shouldn't be near a known Wi-Fi location when it is being examined, but this adds an extra layer of protection. We don't want the phone to connect to the internet during the examination. Both Android and iPhone have options for the user to either lock or delete the phone remotely using their Google or iCloud accounts. Additionally, if the user of the phone got a new phone and used the same Android or iCloud account for the new phone, when the old phone connects with the internet, it would update and some data would be deleted and new data would be added from the new phone through the iCloud or Google account. Turning the phone off will ensure that no wear leveling, garbage collection, or automatic deletions occur on the phone between the time the phone is turned off and the time the examiner turns on the phone for the examination. Now, likely there will be some garbage collection and wear leveling that occur when the examiner turns the phone on, but this is much less of a risk than if we left the phone on and let it operate until the battery died. In criminal cases, this is less critical because usually the investigator can either get an examination of the phone on scene or within a few hours of its collection. But in civil cases, it may be months or years before we get to examine the phone. Removing the battery from the phone will ensure that the phone can't accidentally be turned on. While iPhones and most higher-end Androids have fixed batteries that can't be removed. So we need to take care that the phone isn't accidentally turned on as it's being preserved. The phone should also not be connected to a charger. Many times when a phone is off and it's connected with a charger, it will automatically turn on to charge. As stated earlier, an internet connection could allow the phone to be remotely deleted or locked from the user's Google or iCloud account. Removing the SIM card will ensure that the phone cannot connect with the phone company's data plan through the cell towers. But if the phone passes by a known Wi-Fi and the phone is on, it could connect with the internet. So let me give you an example. If the user frequents Starbucks and uses the Wi-Fi there, the phone could potentially connect with the Starbucks Wi-Fi if, let's say, the person that has the phone stops for a cup of coffee. Putting the phone in a Faraday bag or wrapping it with aluminum foil will ensure that the phone can't connect with a known Wi-Fi. A Faraday bag is a purpose-built bag that prevents radio waves from penetrating the bag and getting to the phone. If we provide these instructions in our preservation letter, we give the opposition the opportunity for good faith preservation of the data. Once we get the opportunity to examine the phone, we will know whether these instructions were followed or not. We will be able to see any activity on the phone after the day that the preservation letter was received. Also, these instructions should motivate the user of the phone to comply with any orders to examine the phone so that they can resume normal use of the phone. So what if your client receives the preservation letter? Well, I recommend following the same steps that we outlined earlier. And if you want to take a proactive approach, then you can have the phone forensically examined and a forensic image retained. That forensic image can then be produced when you receive the legal demand for the phone. A good practice would be to advise your client to have his or her phone automatically update to the cloud when a case is imminent, but you haven't received a preservation letter yet. Then, when your client receives the preservation letter, your client can get a new phone of the same type and restore it from the cloud. That way you can preserve the original phone and your client has the least downtime without his or her phone. So in conclusion, the purpose of this video is to raise awareness that information and evidence can be lost from a cell phone without ill intent by the user. This issue is much more complicated, but you should have enough information now to help preserve the evidence. By educating ourselves and our opposition about the potential loss from cell phones, we can then reduce that loss. Sending a preservation as early as possible in the case will help preserve the most amount of evidence. An example cell phone preservation letter, along with cell phone data preservation letters for the 4 major cell phone companies in the U.S., is available on my website, revforensics.com. Please see the link below. Thank you and have a great day.